Friends, very happy evening. There was a small technical glitch, hence the delay. Sorry for that. Today we have again reassembled for an important CPE meeting on data analytics reshaping the business. Joining with us, we have an experienced faculty, CA Venkatesan, who has got a lot of hands-on experience in implementing a lot of things. Venkatesh have been having a lot of discussion for past 6 months. So the time has just come now that we are able to kind of freeze on the topic, the date and the time. And also he was able to spare time with us to, address. Technology, I always tell, is kind of where we have to kind of gear up to. I think from Excel, it is time we go to Power BI or Python. Somewhere we have to learn and see that we are able to provide value addition to our clients as well. So, not taking much of time between the speaker and you, I will request C. Abhishek Murli to formally introduce the speaker. C. Sundarajan sir, our regional council member, will be joining also anytime. Abhishek, over to you.
Thank you so much, Chairman. A very good evening to all the participants who have joined in today. Good evening to our dynamic chairman of SIRC, CA Dungarchan Jain, our honorable speaker for the day, CA Venkatesan sir, and of course, in Africa, Sundar Rajan, who we are expecting to join soon. The topic choice is very, very relevant. It's also an understatement to say that data analytics are reshaping business because it is completely revolutionizing business, you can say. And as chartered accountants, generally, whenever it used to come to computers, we used to put one arm distance and we used to say, no, sir, we are chartered accountants, computers and all, we don't have to worry. But today, the things are changing. We have to learn to move on because if we don't move with the changes, the clients, they will not come to us, they will start going somewhere else. In fact, Chairman will be aware. Today there was an announcement in one of the WhatsApp groups where a chartered accountancy firm is looking only for engineering qualified chartered accountants. They don't want commerce background. They want engineering qualified chartered accountants. So therefore, you can see slowly even some CA firms, they are looking for these technically equipped people. Obviously, they'll have their reasons. It could be a computer audit, it could be systems audit, whatever. So therefore, I think understanding, appreciating the data analytics today is a very much necessity. It is definitely reshaping is very important. And for that, we have an excellent speaker today, CA Venkatesan, who I have the privilege of introducing. CA Venkatesan M is a qualified chartered accountant from, along with a CISA qualification, and he's specializing in the area of internal control, data analytics, and he is also into internal audit. He is a freelance trainer for both corporate and student community in the area of information assurance, and he's a visiting faculty of the Auditor's General Office in Chennai and the ICAI and various professional bodies across the southern region. He has to his credit data analytics certifications from Microsoft, Udacity, Manipal ProLearn, and Educera. So this is just a brief profile of CA Venkatesan. Thank you so much, Venkatesan sir, for accepting our invitation to be addressing our members today. We welcome you and looking forward to your session.
Yeah, thanks, Abhishek. Sundaran sir, if you are able to hear us, you can address and then we can go ahead with the session. Yeah, you are audible, sir. You can continue, sir, please.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Yes, sir. You are audible and visible. Please carry on.
Yes, sir. Namaskaram, sir, to all of you, especially to the chairman who has given me this opportunity to enter into this, and the speaker, Mr. Venkatesan, sir. Namaskaram, sir. Secretary, and to the audience. I'm totally taken back by the technology because it has allowed me once and it has disconnected me again. Again, it allowed me once, then disconnected. And I think in that scenario, the data has to be stored for you to relay it in off mode also. I think you have a better choice today because I read, I just wanted to share one issue, one thing with you because I read one article today which states about this Ayodhya case. Ayodhya case in which one of the witness was asked to explain how this place was identified as Ram Janmabhoomi. The data what the person showed was even our advocate Mr. Parasuran, he wanted time to explain this, but that man, he came to the fore stage and he explained everything. And from that particular river, Sarayu Nadi, from Sarayu River, how it connects to everything, and the location was, everything was given, and they already accepted it the next day. Next day, they proved it and they accepted it. For this reason, I would like to say that this man was a blind man. He doesn't have 2 months, he lost his eyes. But still, the entire data was stored in his brain. Because he has only listened to what the Purana says and what has been, he was in fact a scholar, he was named some Acharya, and he was given everything. So this data, what is stored into our mind, I think that is giving us the real impact, and we have to work hard. Even I tell you this, the surviving in the business, I think it is very easy if you have a pucker data of how to manage these things, manage the particular situation. For that example, I can quote you from Jayalalitha Madam, who said when the secretary were past chief minister, and she said when the secretaries were asking her how this year we are going to overcome the drought, she clearly said, based on the data, this year, as per Tamil year is this, and so we will get heavy rain. So you plan for how to save the people from rain. So this gave us a clear example the data can help management and even in the right. So I think you will be helpful to us in helping giving us guidance on this. I thank you for this opportunity to the chairman and the secretary and the speaker and the other people who are hearing this. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Subharanand, sir. As he rightly said, data is the new oil, and it is how good you make your data used to make analysis which normally will have just been lying as it is. So, Venkatesh, over to you, where we could listen from you, and we are eagerly waiting to hear from you.
So, good evening to one and all. I take this opportunity first to thank SIRC for a wonderful opportunity to share some of my thoughts in this subject with our fellow. So it's indeed a pleasure connecting on with SIRC and also talking on one of my favorite topics, which we do day in day out. Business analytics, reshaping business. So I just borrow words of what Abhishek said and start from there. Now, say that I'm hearing some noise. Am I audible to everyone? Yeah. So I just borrow what Abhishek started with to say how the data is revolutionizing business. So what we're going to see in next 2.5 hours and followed by a few questions and answers is that, see, one thing that first I would start with a prelude saying that is data the new epic or the new item of the modern thought processes? The answer is not exactly yes, because data-based decisions are something that is starting from age-old days. So we go with the point of view of how do you decide on something is based on data provided to us. So that is something that is not very new to current day aspects. And we cannot say that only today businesses make decisions using data. It is from day one, or what I would say, from every decision in human life is based on some assumption, and that assumption has to be backed up by certain data sets. So deciding any event or deciding what is a course of action based on data is not something that is entirely new, and we cannot say that it is only the recent event and people till now were making a task to make a decision. It was not like that. But what makes this particular era of decision making with data something extraordinary is because of two things. One, availability of information. Second, computing power so that you can interpret this data well. So these are two things that are making a significant change in the way decisions are made in the recent past. So to just give an example, let us say that Walmart, I quote this example in most of my sessions, like Walmart is deciding what to stock in their inventory based on 12 to 13 variables. One such is the purchasing history of the customers, the weather pattern during that particular time, what people talk about products in social media, and certain insights that employees provide by having a cues from talking with the prospective customers and existing past customers. Like that, they have around 12 variables. With that, they try to understand what would be an item that would move very fast. So they backward to decide what should be the stocking item. Now, can you say till now Walmart was stocking before this particular uh, intelligence was brought inside the system? Can we say no, Walmart was stocking the goods left, right, center in a manner that was only aware to someone? And the answer is no. But even Walmart was doing in terms of certain analysis, like what was selling and etc. Today, what happened is we get more information, which can be correlated. Number one. Second, the earlier, now what someone is interested to buy, I would not know. But today from social media, I would know what a person is interested to buy in. So if I amass huge amount of data from social media and try to understand what is the trending purchasable item in the current events, then that would be a cue for me to decide what item should I stock more. There could be a scenario where earlier, now the weather information was not as available as analyzed as today. So I might not know what would be the impact of a season. So let us say a winter is coming and I'm going to stock a huge amount of winter clothes, and the weather predicts this time that the winter is not going to be as severe as it can be, which is just not one particular weather report or one particular information, but uh, maybe co-verified by a lot of other weather forecast experts. I know this weather winter season is not going to be as severe as it can be. Then my stocking pattern is going to be different. So earlier also every person was making a decision based on data, but today the availability of data and different sources from which I can get data are huge. So earlier, let us say if a hotel want to improve a particular process with way of their customer relationship, what they used to do, they used to maybe take up all the customer complaints and take up all these customer complaints and try to look at what could have gone wrong. So now what was the problem in that? Let us take a hotel chain that is there in 8 cities, and the promoter or the managing director sitting in, or let us say the customer relationship expert is sitting in one particular location. Now he has to rely upon the customer complaint boxes or certain comments that people would have passed by way of notes or whatever they have written, or in terms of a particular email. If an organization was little equipped, they have to be dependent on that to make a decision. So even today that is a case, but today what happens is that your storage capacity have increased significantly, so which means that the technology is enabling a particular hotel user to stay in his room, and whatever is not going good, he can automatically put a mailer or put a remark in an app, or he can go to social media, he can tweet what is a problem in a particular hotel, like what we do to Indian Railways these days, saying that this particular item is not functioning well. So we can make a tweet which people can get and look at the information. Third, earlier if I have, there is a problem for a customer and I have resolved that particular problem, I was not storing this information for me to dig deep to understand whether this is a recurring event, whether this is a recurring problem. So if this becomes a recurring problem, can I do something so that this problem doesn't arise? So earlier it was done by few organizations who were smart and better managed organizations, but now with technology and with the storage capacity becoming cheaper and cheaper, what happens is that get stored so that I can analyze that and maybe prevent such events from happening and make serve my customers better. So what is revolutionizing today is that decisions were based on data in the past. Today, the volume of data that is available for me to make a decision is very huge, and the sources by which I can get the data information is also increased tremendously, which is making this particular what I would say subject or this particular scheme of arrangement most happening. Second is the computing power of the systems. So now, earlier we mean the way that the computers have evolved, we would know earlier we used to have floppy disk even for taking up a report. Today we can communicate using clouds with terabytes of data. So, or if you see what is the Google's data engine size, we are getting amassed. So the computing capability and the way that the information passes using technology is humongous. So these two has actually, what I would say, reshaped the practice of data analytics as such and made decisions with data as immediate as possible. So earlier, let us look at an organization, even what little computerized. They used to have a particular month's MIS to be consolidated at a branch level, then to be consolidated at region level, then has to be consolidated at the state level. Accountants and experts used to burn the midnight oil, and by the time that your report is ready for the senior management to look at or a middle management to look at, it will take 10 to 15 days. And if you have to make any decision based on this particular report within after 15 days of a month, then I think in some of the cases we have passed the timeline, and we might not, our decision may not be that effective as we want it to be. Today, with technology and your capabilities of data sciences, we can ensure that either certain red flags which can cause a lot of problems to be reported on an immediate basis to an organization. Second is interpreting the data is much faster and much better because certain mundane analysis the system itself throws. So you have to only the view of an analyst is going to be digging a little deeper to arrive at certain bit more patterns rather than putting his brain and trying to work on the mundane analysis, which is already been provided by the system. So these enables the decision making much faster and much bigger. So data was there, data analytics was there in the past as well. So, but today the computing power, the data amount of data, sources of data, volume of data is making the sciences the most happening thing of our times, and it is ensuring that the business make as right decisions as possible, because we are still are not into a scenario where every decisions are 100% right. We cannot say that all the decisions that the data is going to throw are 100% right, because it depends on the quality of the input data, it depends on some of the algorithms that we use, it also depends on certain variables that are not beyond our capability. For example, COVID. So nobody predicted COVID. So now there were data models that were developed pre-COVID, and all these data models have to be adjusted to put the impact of COVID, because it will not be the same. So now what happens is that the concept of data sciences has been revolutionizing business or reshaping the business only because of the reason of is volume, humongous, and the computing capability. With this intro, we'll go to the session. So what we're going to see today is about an intro about data analytics and what are the types in which data analytics, what is the generally accepted, what I would say, the definitions of data, what categories of analysis that exist, how it can help the business organization. After that, I'll take you through to a couple of case studies using Power BI on how it is done in a practical manner. So all is good when it is in paper, but what happens is that can we do it in real life? Can we take a business problem that an organization is facing and can we implement it in our day in day out affair? That is the most important thing that we might have to look at the end of the session, and how it can add value to other practices and certain tools and skills that we need for us to get improved on data. This is what we're going to see on the entire set. I hope I'm very audible to everyone. And
Yes, yes, Venkat, you are good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So what is analytics all about? Okay. So this definition of data analytics is something that what I borrow from the IBM book on data. So this particular aspect about data sciences is something that is so encompassing, and it is this definition almost takes into account a small MIS statement to a big data cloud, what big data analytics, that what someone at Walmart is going to do, or what Facebook is going to do. This definition is as encompassing as it can be. So what is analytics? Analytics is use of data, information technology, statistical analytics, statistical analysis, quantitative methods, and mathematical or computer based models to help managers gain improved insight about their business operation and make better and fact based decisions. So, this definition of what is analytics and what is data analytics is so encompassing. So, what are the components of it? What are the attributes of it? First, it uses data. So all starts with this particular primary ingredient of the data set that is available with us. Then it uses information technology, that is the computing power of systems. Statistical analysis, certain techniques like we call it, you have mean, median, mode, standard deviation, variances, correlation, regressions, multivariate regression models, whatever you call it. So it depends on the data set, depends upon the business, depend upon the problem that you're facing. All that comes handy. Average, for a very simple example that we use in a very day in day out. Statistical analysis, quantitative methods, certain scorecards, because data is always not numerical. So there are data that is categorical. So for those data sets, we might have to do certain quantitative methods to arrive at certain good uh, what I would say, insights about the business. And at last, it uses certain mathematical and computer-based models. These are certain algorithms that we are using other than the statistics to bring out with certain insights. This even include how we use our information technology. For example, now let us say a particular person is there in this algorithm is not something that we know day in day out. There are certain algorithms we use, but there are certain algorithms that are there in an encapsulated mode. That means that we are using it, we are getting the fruit of it, but we might not know that that algorithm is there. So just to give you an example, let us say that we are putting a search from a database which contains numbers from say 1 to let us call 1 trillion. So there are numbers from 1 to 1 trillion that is there in a column of a database. So to say a column, a very easily understandable item is an Excel. So now let us say that in an Excel statement, we are having 1 to 1 trillion rows, and every row contains 1 to 1 trillion number, 1, 2, 3, 4, and goes to 1 trillion. Now someone is going to search a number, and that number has to be picked up. Okay, let us say I am searching a number called 64. I am just assuming this 1 to 1 trillion is the IDs of people in the world. Just giving a very mundane example. So 1 to 1 trillion are we identify every person in this world and assign a number to him. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, and it goes to 1 trillion. And now I want to find out about a person whose ID is 64. So how did I arrive at 64? Let us not go to that. Let us say that I just want to find out a person from 64. So you know what this particular algorithm does in the background to give you a result of 64, which is coming in 1/10 of a millisecond or a nanosecond, is that it will first check this number and check whether this number is greater than the middle number, that is 1 trillion divided by 2. So 64 is lesser than half of 1 trillion. So what it will do is it will not search this number in any item below this one half of 1 trillion. So it will look at rows from 1 to first half of 1 trillion. Then again, it will go to the middle of 1 to 1 half of 1 trillion, search for 64. Again, it will decide that, okay, this number is not midway between these. And it will do this process iteratively, repeatedly. and come to 64 when the number is going to be 65 or 1. You come to that level. So
Sir, sorry to interrupt. You're not able to see the screen, sir. It's vanished. It's grayed out. Can you stop share and reshare it again?
yeah, I will do it. Can you see it now?
1 minute. Right now I can see Excel screen.
Yeah,
And if you're going to navigate among Excel and PPT, you better share your screen as a.
I am sharing the screen.
Yeah, I can see it, sir. The thing is that if you're going to navigate among PPT and Excel means you just share it as a screen one option, so it will allow you to navigate among both the applications.
I noted.
Please, thank you, sir.
So now this is an Excel sheet that we are having where we are going to have say the number of rows in Excel. So now I'm going to search 64, and if I select this and put 64, the Excel is going to throw it just in no instance, correct? So what happens in this background is that it is first segregating from when I put 64, it is checking all this because of the computing capability of the system. When I put 64, it checks is 64. Now the total number of rows here is, let us say, make it even, is going to be this much. So it is going to first start looking at whether 64 greater than 524884. The answer is no. So what it will do is it will restrict its search only from row number 1 to row number 52464. Then it is going to redo that again and check whether 64 is greater than this, but it is not the case. So again, it is going to reiterate it. This algorithm is a search algorithm that is used by a lot of entities or a lot of database experts on when they are trying to do a search algorithm inside a particular database, because search is something that we use very often, right? Either it is going to be Excel or it is going to be a data set, whatever. Search is something that is very primary. So it is this function that is what getting used, and this will go till we find the number 64. Okay, but because of the computing capability, this all happens in a 1/10 of a second or 1/10 of a nanomillisecond, depends on what computer and what capability that we are using. So if I'm going to do this, it is going to stop when we reach this Q, that is 63. So what it does is now, is 64 greater than 63? The answer is yes. So the next cell is what is a cell that we need. So it will depict it directly. So data analytics is use of certain mathematical or computer-based models. I was just trying to diagnose to show you what could be a computer-based model. This is a very simple one. There are X number of patented models that is being used day in, day out by data scientists. And this is one such item, which is not a statistical one, but that is a computing capability one. So data, information technology, statistical analysis, quantitative methods, and mathematical and computer-based models that help the managers gain improved insights about their business. So all this works on a common objective. The objective is getting more insights or getting better improved insights about the businesses. So this is definition of a pure business analytics perspective. Getting better insights about their business. So it could be on the past data, it could be on the present data, it could be on the future data with future prediction, it could be on projections, it could be even in terms of scenarios, like what could happen if this happens, that what will happen if following variables act in a particular manner. It could be on any of that. So it depends on the business problem that we are trying to solve. So it helps the managers gain improved insights about their business operation and make better and fact-based decisions. Decisions that are not based on any hunch, but based on facts. So generally, the fact and hunch in most of the cases might not go hand in hand. So your hunch might be that this particular sales representative is doing good based on his appearance, based on the way he performs, based on the way he performs in the sense, based on the way he is answering in the meeting, based on the way his thought processes are, etc. But performing good depends on the number of sales that he makes. So now, if you want you to rank a sales guy, humans might get influenced by the other characteristics of it. But if you're going to look at a sales executive purely based on sales, even then humans might get influenced. But a system would, or this analytic techniques will help you to decide based on the fact rather than based on certain other what I would say cues or certain other perks and prerequisites. It will not do based on that. So we will make decisions based on what the data throws. So it helps the business operations. It helps the managers to make better decisions, which are fact based, which help them to get better insights about their operations. So this is what is analytics all about. So what is data analyst, or who is that? A person who practices this field is going to be a data analyst. So even you can call someone who is this definition is so encompassing that we can say that at one point of our life or not, we would have been a data analyst because we would have done something of this sort. If not in an existingly more complicated manner, but in certain decisions, you would have used some of this. So they are going to bring insights to the board, insights to the table, so that decisions are better. It is based on insights and it are fact based. This is what is the what an analytic entails, or what is data analytics all about. And application of this to business, application of business idea to data is where we are going to make it with an ROI. So let us say that I am hiring a data scientist. So how do you say whether this decision is good or bad? So how many insights that a data scientist is going to give so that my decisions are faster, my decisions are better, my decisions are fact-based. And with that, how much money I'm going to save. So that is an ROI of data analytics field as such. So how much money I have saved or how much more money I earned could be one of the very simple metrics by which we decide a data analytics output as well. So what here brings to the table is that anything that is not connected to the business might not be a great what I would say. It will be a good theoretical one, but unless and until it is helping the businesses to achieve its objectives, these analytic techniques might not be as welcomed by the business users. So any analytic technique or data analytics that is not uh, solving any of the business problem, it might not have a great response. So data analytics is all about use of data, technology, statistical analysis, quantitative methods, and certain models to help make better decisions. So we just put a one-liner about it. Data analytics is a field that helps people to make better decisions by providing insights and helping them to make fact-based decisions. Now, what this particular deployment or this particular category of data is something that is universally accepted. So this particular item is something that is generally accepted wide around. Four kinds. One, we call it descriptive, other we call it diagnostic, third we call it predictive, fourth we call it perspective. So descriptive is something that based on past information. It is on what is happening. So your MIS is a very good example of descriptive analytics. How much sales that we made last year, how much outstanding we have for last month, which product is giving me, which product sold well in the last month, which product didn't sell at all, which executive performed better, which executive didn't perform well. All this comes under the comes under the bucket of descriptive analytics. It is based on the past information. The next point that we're going to look at is diagnostic analytics. Now, from descriptive, this diagnostic is something like one step ahead, or it is going a little deeper. So here we are trying to analyze the output of descriptive analytics and try to look at why did this happen. So it is like a root cause analysis. Okay, let us say this particular customer didn't pay as well, or this customer is outstanding for quite some time. So, and then we give a root cause analysis. Is his credit limits exhausted? Are we giving him more than what the credit limit that we have already taken? Is there any problem with this business? Or let us look at call the sales manager and try to understand why he has had a problem. So this diagnostic analytics is a bit more deeper than the descriptive analytics to understand why did this happen. It is on a root cause analysis of that drive out of the descriptive analytics. And predictive is a field that is going to be successful provided the first two steps are good. So which means that you should have a good data set, you should have thought about most of the variables that connect the particular problem, and etc. And with that, if you are trying to look at what is going to happen in the future, assist in understanding the future by providing forecast, by identifying patterns in the historical data. So I would just give you an example. A bank came to us to know, it's a cooperative society bank, it came to us trying to understand how can we predict a pattern of someone who has lost his credit card but not yet reported. Okay, now let us say I have lost my credit card but I have not reported to the bank. So what would happen is I might get my card might get swiped somewhere else. So here we are talking about a very small timeline. So when people might ask me, if a guy has lost his credit card, why didn't he call up the bank? So let us say he has realized that he has lost the credit card 4 hours later, but anything could happen in this meanwhile in terms of a transaction. So what can be a pattern for us to find out that there is a possibility that there is an occurrence like that? So what happens is that if I have to determine what could be the point where I am saying that there could have been a breach of a credit card is by analyzing my past transaction. So I'm going to analyze the users, all the transactions. Let us say that the way he swipes, the amount he swipes in general. Okay, that is not something that we are going to do by looking at his data. This is what system is going to do. Okay, so because the data privacy, we are not going to know whose credit card it is and etc. I'm just trying to give you an example of the front end, because all this is done by the system internally, and we are just going to give the system to say that you have to understand this particular pattern. And we say, okay, how much amount he generally swipes? What is the highest amount he has swiped in the past? How many times that highest amount is swiped? So let us say for a medical treatment, he has to swipe 75,000 before he goes to a hospital. So apart from that, his average swiping is only being 10 to 15,000. Okay, what interval he swipes between one transaction to another transaction? If he is swiping credit cards, is generally having any pattern in terms of hotels, in terms of shopping malls, in terms of etc. What is the most ideological location in which he swipes the card? For example, once I had a breach where I didn't miss my credit card, but someone was trying to swipe using my credit card in Canada. So my bank called me immediately and said, "Are you making this international transaction?" I said, "No." So how did the bank know that this particular transaction? Because you would see the volume, the number of swipes that happen at every second all over the globe for one credit card company is so humongous, right? So you cannot look at every call and call that person, because he would get annoyed, first of all. While it is a safety, you cannot happen that. It cannot, it is humanly impossible. So what happens is that there are certain patterns that are set. So the credit card company called me and said, I didn't do it. So they stopped that particular transaction, and they said, it is better that you make a new credit card request, and because this particular credit card information is compromised. So what happens here is that so where he generally swipes, what location is his priority swiping? So all that is getting analyzed at the background. And if a transaction is not in any of this pattern, okay, it is missing in most of the patterns, it is missing the limb on 10 to 12 variables among all the variables that we have analyzed, then the transaction is put on hold, and this particular transaction comes to the screen or the queue of the customer executive who's standing behind the system to make a call to confirm whether the transaction is done by the user. Because here we are not concluding that this particular transaction is not done by the user, by the genuine user. We are just trying to have a pattern and indicate that this might be something that he would not have done, he might not have done. So now this particular example, what we are trying to say, how did the system know this could be a non-genuine transaction? Okay, the system has to be aware, right? So Am I good? Am I audible? I getting some chat. Whether people are comfortable hearing to it, or is there some...
No problem. Fine.
So now, how does this particular bank would know? So the point is that this particular transaction came off pattern. It is away from the general pattern that this guy follows. So now they are going to call this particular person to check whether the transaction is genuine. So this is one of the very big utility of data analytics. Data analytics on a real life fraud detection scenario. So for a business, it could be in terms of like what we said as an example for Walmart, what they do in trying to predict their stocking pattern and trying to look at what has happened and etc. So a simple example was something that we did. The next is on perspective analytics. So this is based on all the data set that is available by certain outputs of descriptive analytics, based on the output of diagnostic analytics, based on certain predictive patterns and forecast, if required, depends on the business problem. What is the best option to choose by way of on account of the desired outcome? A decision tree. If some of you would have heard about it, decision tree is a concept that is an example that's squarely put into perspective analytics. Where a decision tree is nothing but you look at all the possible options as one of your branches of the tree. Every branch outcome is what we put it as a decision's output, and based on that particular output, what are the chances of this output being coming up, and with this entire scheme of arrangement, what could be the best possible scenario for me to choose. So this decision tree is something that is applied when bankers lend loan to entity. So let us say that a person belongs to a particular age group, say 30 to 45, and he is employed, let us say he's in his own business, and he's in a construction industry business. Let us take a very simple example. I mean, this is an example that is very generic, so I am not trying to put any. This example should not be taken into a real life scenario as if I'm accusing some particular industry or particular person. So the bank has a background information or the past data that says there is a loan application that has come of a person who's between the age group of 30 to 35, whose last year turnover was say 2 crores. And he belongs to construction industry. There'll be a little bit more variables in decision tree, but I'm just making it a little simple for us to understand. Now, in these three cases, now the banker has to decide whether to lend loan to this person or not. Okay, let us put this example in a decision tree concept. What would happen is that there are two decisions that are possible. The decision is to give loan or not to give loan. So now, how do you decide between these two? Let us say that the money that I'm going to make by lending this loan is going to be say X, and the money that I am making not giving this loan will be the loss of this. So let us say the interest that he has asked for a loan of 1 crore of rupees, and the interest I'm going to make is say 7% of it. So 7 lakhs is what I'm going to make in 1 year. So the bank's loss, the main bank's gain if they give the loan is 7 lakh. The bank loss if they're not giving this loan to them is not getting the 7 lakh. Don't tell me that this 1 lakh could be deployed somewhere else. So we are looking at the decision tree. We have to look at in binary. So it could not be having an alternative. So this is two options. Now, what could happen is that there is another case where I give loan and my 7 lakh also doesn't come. There is a default of 1 crore. So that is also possible. So what the bankers is going to do is they're going to take generally the age profile between 30 to 35. What is the past trend of defaulting? Attach that to this particular example. Then construction industry, what is the average of they not paying money? Put that to this example. And what is the chances of paying? What is the chance of not paying? So let us say people between 30 to 35, the chances of they making payment is say 75%, and chances of they defaulting is the 65%. This comes with a conditional probability, so it will not be 75 plus 24 won't work. So that's how it is. So now, so here we use certain statistical technique like conditional probability, decision tree to decide whether to give loan to this person or not. So these days we say that it is a computerized system of decision on whether the loan is to be given. ICAI Bank, for an example, has put a simple ideology, an engine by which if you have an account with ICICI or you don't have an account with ICICI, you want an instant overdraft limit. Then what they're asking is you upload your bank statement to the ICICI website. And with that, they are trying to they are saying what is the loan amount that they can, what is an OD amount that they can give. It's not just with ICICI, a lot of banks are doing it. And this is now available for an end user also. So we can go to ICICI login, put that instant OD, and they ask for our bank statement. And where I mean the computer engine is asking for the bank statement, and they, at the end of it, they say what is an OD limit that they can give you. So how this works? This is a very good data engine technique where they are analyzing the bank statement credits and debits that has happened, and what kind of income that the person has, what kind of credits that person has, how many repeated payments he has made to a particular account, and all that. There are 5-6 variables that is getting inside, and with that they try to predict what could be the risk that they can undertake. So yes, let us say they provide a score based on this particular point and the maximum transaction that has come to the bank account, and they have an internal percentage that is also based on the past record. So there are a lot of variables that have come in, and with that they arrive at this particular number. So this is something called this is what we put it as perspective analytics. So assisting in identifying the best option to choose in achieving the desired outcome. So these 4 are generally accepted, or this definition of data and the categorization of what data analytics is. This is something that is widely recognized among all the data scientists. So descriptive is past data, diagnostic is root cause of that, predictive is using the past historical trend to look at what could happen in the future. Predictive perspective is where we look at what is the best outcome to choose with the correct, with the available information and with available data techniques. So this is types of data analytics. Now, how it is impacting the organizations and business processes, how it is improving that. So excuse me for a moment. So what data answers to any business? It generally answers 3 questions, or the answers that data provides can be put into 3 buckets. What happened at hindsight? So what happened? Hindsight, insight, foresight. Hindsight is what happened. What happened could be a wrong customer, wrong rate, it could be higher discount, it could be lower discount, it could be choosing a higher valued product as a cost. It could be default from a customer. It could be delayed in our inventory coming in. It could be customer complaints, whatever. So what happened is what we call it as hindsight. So what data throws up is it helps us to know what happened, just not at one instance, but at a huge amount of data. We did a particular hotel for a big hotel company. We did an analytics where we tried to look at their customer complaints. Luckily, they were having customer complaints of last 4 years to 5 years. So while it started as analyzing the customer complaints, what it changed is understanding the customer pattern on their expectation. So 6 years back, a particular customer's biggest problem was the carpet was not neat. The carpet, I mean, he felt his carpet was not neat, was a complaint that we got. Today, the customer complaints pattern is entirely different. Okay, so earlier the complaint was, some of the complaint was that the attender, the hotel attendant was very late. So I tried connecting, but he came very late. But these days the complaint was much in terms of different. So what happened is that they were trying to understand what is the pattern of the customer, to understand what is their expectation levels, or how the trend in an industry is changed. We're looking at somewhere around 20 years of data. So the way it changed, we had to do a lot of work in bringing the data from a legacy system to an existing system. It was challenging work, but it was very insightful to understand how the hotel industry has evolved, how the customers in hotel industry has evolved in particular. So what happened is an insight. How many such instances happen? How often that is happening out? Where it is happening out? So let's say there is a particular field today with all these work from homes that is getting common. Is a data breach. So they have there are companies and even CA firms have continuous monitoring techniques, where they monitor the network of the business users of the organization, where the business network is widespread, to understand whether there is an logout breach, whether there is an login issues, and etc. A lot of techniques that they do. So that data, the huge data of logs that we have, is something that people analyze to know what kind of breaches happen, where the predominant breaches come, how many times it has happened, how often that has happened, from where it has originated, all that. So inside hindsight is looking at the past. With that, we go to the next point of insight. So insight is, from hindsight, we come to a observatory technique on where is the problem. Okay, so just to give a good example, in this particular segment, we find that let us say that a particular hospital is trying to bill insurance bills to insurance companies, and invariably, if they bill 100 rupees, they were getting 30 rupees back, or 75 rupees back. 25 rupees was not coming. Now we analyze to have an insight on where this 25 contribute to. What particular, is there a pattern to say this doctor is contributing significant issues, this doctor bill is having constantly issues with the insurance company, or this particular department is having a lot of issues with the insurance company. It could be, for example, there has been 7 times instances of production delay. Now, out of the 7 times instances of production delay, where is the root cause? Where is the problem? It means that, okay, it can be tracked to a particular vendor whose lead time is always higher, or who gives predominantly his rejections are more. That is there the problems. So we did an analytics for a company where we are trying to link warranty to a batch to which it was produced. So is there a problem if I am, let us say that a particular warranty levels is at, say, 7% or 8% of your turnover is where the warranty limits are. Profits where the warranty 8% of your cost, or 3% of your cost on the sales is what is your warranty. Now, out of this 3%, what contributes to warranty? Can we go back to understand is there which particular batch had a problem in significant warranty? So if this particular batch is having a significant problem, was there a problem? What is very unique about it? Where there was a increased production time, or the materials came from a particular vendor, and that particular materials where the warranty was higher. Was there a labor problem during that period? What is causing the warranty? So it is like, where is the problem? This is the insight. And then what actions are possible? So now, can we improve? So now let us find out that the problem is there in the material. So now can we look at looking at an alternative vendor? Okay. Excuse me, friends. So can we look at the alternative vendors, or if there is a problem in a particular batch because of, let us say, labor problem. Now, is there the same labor force that is working with us? Is there a training problem with the laborers? Whatever. So what actions are possible and why it is happening? So why it is happening and what actions are possible are, where is the problem, why it is happening, and what actions are possible. Then the last part is foresight. What if this trend continue? What could happen next? So for the same example, it might not have all things, but there could be a scenario where, let us take our example of doctor's payout, or the insurance company making payment to hospitals. What happened? 25% of the amount didn't come over to the hospitals. Where is the problem? Let us say there is a particular problem in a particular, let us say, doctors, or a particular kind of drugs that we're getting this from. What if this trend continues? So by the time we have finished that analysis, let us say there is a 2 months delay. In the last 2 months, how many such instances are there? Okay, what can we do if we have to stop this particular problem for happening in the future? So it gives you a foresight on what could be the possible outcomes if the problem continue. What can we do about it? What could happen next? Whether we can change that, etc. So hindsight, insights, and foresight is the major responses that the data provides. So here we are discussing about how it can help the organization. So it can help the organization by providing hindsight, It can provide insight, and it can help you to think. It can help you to predict and understand the foresights better. So key takeaways from any data engagement is that what it is going to do. It is a rapid view of truth. So rapid is a very important item here, because in the past also we are having awareness about the truth, but it was by the time we have recognized the truth, the days are done. So we have lost our ship. So now it is rapid view with the technology and with the computing capability that is coming in. It is so fast to understand the truth. Second is provide a command center view for managers and drill down to detail. So it means that now I can look at this particular mundane analysis that is being taken care by the system. I'm going to look at the insight that are even more greater. It could be in terms of I know a client of mine who does an analysis to determine what is their timeline, a TAT time between Chennai to Bangalore transportation on days, on nights, on weekdays, on weekends, and when there is festival, when there is no festival, etc. So it is drilling down to so much of detail so that I can predict my transportation of goods. An extraordinary work which is done at a client side by themselves. So it is your the command center view, so I can realign my business decisions so fast so that it gives me a brilliant output. Then personnel can be freed from mundane report preparation. This is something that I've been iterating from so many times, because I'm seeing this is on a real-time basis. That the mundane report preparations of summarizing your sales, summarizing your data on a very basic level is now lost. So that you can, because see, in general, if you see, there is our institute has been constantly talking about segregation of duties, maker and checker. Okay, one of the very primary constituents of an internal control is that maker and checker. Now let us imagine I am one who's preparing a report, okay, on summarizing the sales and looking at data outstanding, etc. My mind would be focusing more on preparing this report than analyzing and interpreting this report. Okay, so if a manager is going to be given all these mundane reports by the system in a capsule, he can look at and he can drill down much faster in terms of analyzing these particular elements and making his decisions much faster and much better. Uh, okay, so that advantage is something that is very huge, and I have seen it personally being possible, where my life cycle with an organization will last say 5 years, and we have sat with them and automated certain reports, and the way the managers make decisions or the amount of time that they spend in a particular analysis is reduced to half. So that was something that was extraordinary improvement, and which has been testimonied by them. So they can be freed from mundane report. Individual departments can track their performance in real time. One thing that is very good about this is, let us say we had a client where there is marketing and sales department. So this is something that is going from age-old principles. And if you look at, if you're a fan of Hollywood movies, there is a famous one, "You should close." That's what is a sales mantra that that movie was telling to all the sales executives. Brilliant movie where would be an expert who would come in and blast all the salespeople and just to diagnose. So closing. Be closer. That's what is the sales mantra, what they would say. So now individual departments will always have a problem where sales will say marketing is giving me bad leads. Marketing will say I provide good leads and sales is not converting. This is something that has been going from age-old principles when these two departments got functioning. Now who decides what? Who decides that marketing is doing better or sales is doing? Now, individual departments can track their performances. Now, sales can track their performance by you putting certain data skills in it. Let us take a simple example for one of our clients who's in a real estate example. Marketing is looking at providing leads and sales is looking at conversions. Now, how do you put this particular problem to end to decide whose performance is better and need to improve? So we had a particular mechanics to know how many leads are qualified. We have put certain 4 or 5 qualifier criteria and decided that how many leads that comes inside the system are qualified. Let us say the prospective buyer wants a location to match, wants the budget to match, his age profile should match with the general customers that we have. and he should having the property, what I would say, the component ready. For example, he's looking at a ready to buy, ready to move property, and I'm having a property that is just started, so it will not work. So we have put some 4 or 5 qualifying criteria and said, if the leads match this criteria and that is being passed on to sales, and if the conversion doesn't happen, then it is the performance of the sales department, not the performance of the marketing department. Okay, if the leads that comes inside the system are not qualified enough, let us say this month 200 leads came and there were 150 leads that were qualified, and the sales could convert, let us say, at a 10%, 15 leads, and both the departments are doing great job. But if let us look at 200 leads that came in, only 50 leads are qualified, but still the sales team could do 20 bookings. That means that the sales team has done very much, but the marketing team needs improvement. I'm just giving a scenario. So now the individual department to track their matrices are brilliant. One. Second, it is also real time. So it is not any human involved. I am not going to be the judge who says, okay, this is qualified and this is not. The variables are decided by both the departments. It is internally put in the system, and the system is going to throw the report to both of them. So the system has no likes or dislikes. So brilliant about it. And meet changing business needs, rapidly define new reports. This is something a very big advantage. Now, let us say that we are in Power BI scenario. Now, I have a case study that I'm going to depict you, and I'll show you how to create a new report. Just one example, because I mean, SIRC have done a lot of programs on Power BI itself, so I'm not going to go into that level of detail in Power BI. But what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you one particular report. Just create a particular report for you of one particular visual for you. So now what happens is that if you want to create a new report, it is so instant. Okay, it is not a case where in the past we have to go and put a request to an IT department. The IT department is going to put it on the queue, and you need approvals from various departments. Then we might have to provide a business case for it, provide a reasons for it, allocate a budget. While this is still happening for a very big IT decisions, if a manager wants to have one report additional in Power BI, it is not so what I would say IT savvy that a business user or a management person can create a report in a very simple steps of awareness about IT. He need not. I would say he should be a bit of a tech aware guy, and not he need not be a tech expert. So that's an advantage here. So HR people are doing analytics using Power BI, Tableau, and etc., where they are not techie people. So that's what I'm trying to put here. So being a techie is not a requirement today to create new reports. That is a great advantage. And thanks to all these analytics tools that have become so user friendly that you can navigate left, right, center in a much easier manner. So this is what key takeaways of what a manager can get. So you can also put this into 3 categories of how do you put a data analytics project. Okay, now we have talked much about what benefits that you can put in across certain explaining particular components of data analytics by some XYZ. Now, what is very important is that how do you set up this? Now, the first and foremost question that we have to answer ourselves is, what is the business problem all about? Unless and until this question is defined, undefined, then we are roaming somewhere else. So according to me, I am a big fan of first defining a business problem. And this business problem could be on any one of this category. It could be a performance enhancement category, it could be efficacies and efficiency category, or it could be a monitoring category. Okay, so what is the business problem are we trying to solve using data, or what is a business problem for which we are trying to put more insights using data? That is the primary question that we are trying to solve. So let us take monitoring for example. I gave you enough examples on internal control, breach of a transaction, login issues. Banks does that in a very high level in terms of putting a data techniques to understand the transactions. Then KPIs. So it could be in terms of monitoring, it could be in terms of breach of KPI. Let us take okay, a call center example that we're going to see in detail. Has to have a minimum KPI of 4.5 hours on call on an 8-hour working day. So it means that any call center executive has to be there on phone, on call for a minimum period of 4.5 hours to 5 hours. Minimum is 4.5, maximum is 6 or 7. If a particular employee who is belonging to a call center has not spoken with customers for 4.5 hours in a particular day, then it is a black mark or it is a red flag. It could be number one. Second, it could be also in terms of how many minutes he speaks with the call, because the KPIs that are defined in the call center industry itself is a separate topic for which we can discuss. But just we'll restrict ourselves to one KPI. One KPI is how many hours in a day is sitting on a phone call. Now, what could happen is, first we have defined a KPI. We can set up a system by which this KPI is getting measured, number one. Second, assuming this KPI is not adhered, or this KPI throws up a very bad result, someone has been sitting on 3 hours only. Okay, so we can set up a system in which if yesterday is going to sit only for 3 hours, the first escalation will go to a immediate manager. Then if the same repeats for a couple of days, then this could go to a manager's, the next level manager, and etc. So KPIs can be defined, and red flags associated with KPI can be defined, and it can also be automated in such a way that you will not know it at end of the period. Okay, it will not be like we have to wait for 1 month to know what is the average number of hours that this person has been spending in a month. Okay, I have a report for that also, just because it's not, I don't want to show you an automated report from a client environment, but I've created a report, which is a case study, which is going to analyze it on a month basis, which an MD is going to look at. But for a middle management to act immediately, we have defined KPIs that is automated, red flags that is defined associated with the KPI that is also automated. Third, if there is a red flag, what the system has to do. Okay, so let us say that in audit, this question suddenly comes up. Okay, have you done BRS? The answer is yes. Okay, what is the outcome of the BRS? So, is there any stale checks that are there? What are you going to do about it? So, okay, there were stale checks that are there. What did you do? My boss used to say, I said, yeah, I found stale checks. He says, did you speak with the client to pass the rectification entry, ask him to remove that because this check is no longer valid. So the other step is what I mean, I didn't do. What is the fun of you doing it? Like that, if you have defined a KPI and you have also put what is the measurement criteria of a KPI, what do you do about it? There is an escalation mechanism which is also automated. So the manager can even look at it in his dashboard, or he will get a mail saying that the so-and-so employees have not adhered to the KPI requirements. So he can act upon them, call them up and ask what is the problem. Is there any technical glitch that he is facing, or he needs a personal day off, whatever. I'm looking only at the positive side of it. So look at like that. Energy consumption. Certain organizations now, Google has promised that they will be a zero carbon emitting company by 2030. So how does they doing it? They first monitor their energy consumption. You cannot what I would say, you cannot improve unless and until you measure. Correct. So first measurement is very important. Measurement, monitoring, improvement. Unless and until you measure, unless and until you monitor, unless and until, if these two steps are not there, you cannot improve. Correct. You need a benchmark. I have been studying 0 hours a day, then I'm going to study 5 hours a day. So unless I know how many hours I study, how can I say what should be the next limit? Something like that. So unless you measure, unless you monitor, you cannot improve. So carbon emission, Google has been noting down. So Google has been monitoring what is their emission levels, what kind of materials that they're using. The tech giant, that is something that is given, but there was monitoring of it. Then efficiencies, manning, planning. So it could be, we had a client where how many field engineers that you have to deploy. Okay, that manning depends on your data inputs, like what would be per day capacity on a reasonable basis. And this is for real time. So it's not like if there is a change in the scenario, it gets automatically updated. So the manager is going to do very well. That is something on manning, planning about how do you make business decisions on that. Your forecast based on your historical trend will be something that works on the planning part. Decision making based on that. The decision making is given. So you have better facts, you decide better. And you also decide on the synergies that you can work out. We have done an engagement where we reorganized the field engineers' routes. Geo-based analytics, okay, GPS-based analytics. So in the GPS-based analytics, what we guys try to do is let us say that there are 4 locations which a field engineer has to go. So we try to reroute it in such a way that one field engineer is going to cover 2 locations, so that the number of field engineers that you require is less. You could have seen a good example of Swiggy. Now, Swiggy, if you see, there are certain instances where they have picked up the order, but it will say that it is delivering to a nearby location. So what Swiggy is doing is that Swiggy's algorithm is going to do a GPS analytics to know, okay, now Swiggy has a requirement to deliver on time. So they have to deliver it in 30-35 minutes, because you can cancel an order if it is delayed and you can get a refund. So they don't want that. So they have to deliver on time. And if there is a in between delivery, if let us say there should be a delivery at ICAI in Mumbai, and there is also a delivery at, say, income tax office. Now the Swiggy algorithm works in such a way that if the orders are together and nearby, and the timeline is in such a way that it matches, considering the route, considering the way whether the person is there, the other side of the income tax office, this side of the income tax office, this side, I mean, whether he's coming from Cathedral Road or he's coming from Numambakam, will decide which location has to be delivered first, whether the income tax office or Numambakam. First of all, the Swiggy algorithm is going to do whether these 2 orders have to be combined. Okay, so strategies like that, operational synergies, data helps you too good on that. On making decisions faster and enabling your synergy so that you save cost, optimize your resources. Data is up for it. We do deep digging of data, we have enough opportunities, and whatever is practicable. As I said in this example, if there is an order in ICAI Nungambakam and the person is coming from Cathedral Road, and there is an order in Sterling Road, it is not going to make sense unless and until the Sterling Road order is have to be delivered after ICAI Nungambakam order. Because if a person has to travel from Cathedral Road to Sterling Road and then come back to ICAI, it doesn't solve the TAT problem. So all the variables have to be taken care. So the opportunity to synergy has to be practicable. That's what I'm trying to say. It is not that sometimes when we say data is going to solve all the problems, it is also going to solve that here you should not synergize. So it will be 2 cases. One, here it can synergize. Second, data is not going to throw always you have to synergize. It will say here it's not good to synergize. So that also data was it's going to throw to us. Then performance enhancements, insights on revenue management, cost efficiency. These are given. Even a good MIS system would have most of it. With our social media and databases that are available in the system, we now have a competition strategy that are there to analyze what is the competition strategy that they are putting it across. So let us say we are in a particular location, a real estate company, 7 kilometers or 6 kilometer radius. Let us say even reduce 5 kilometer to 7 kilometer radius. How many projects are up by the competitors? What is a base rate that is going in that particular unit? Okay, so how they are changing the rate, how they are increasing the rates as the booking goes. What is the level of construction progress that other competitors are having? Okay, all this will affect your decisions also, because now let us say that there are 2 projects and 2 good companies. Now how do you decide whether this company is better, this company is better? There are very small rooms to play. So competition, analyzing what the competitor does is going to be very important. And now with the availability of data and also the other aspects, you will get to know what it is. One thing that we did in the past is that going to the social media to know what kind of complaints that we get. Okay, what kind of complaints competitor gets. Okay, so now if competitor gets this kind of complaints, can we work good so that the kind of problems that arise at our scenario? So something like that. And your framing business strategy, that is something that is very unique. So just to summarize whatever we have been discussing so long, before we jump onto the case studies, what is business analytics environment all about? I segregate the business analytics environment into 3 categories. One is revenue, cost, lifestyle, and risk. So anything that you bring it under should be in one of these buckets. Okay. Revenue, I interline into quantity, rates, assurance, etc. Lifestyle is where I bring in optimizations, I bring in customer relationships, etc. Risk is things going wrong. Cost is obviously every company wants to have a cost control. Now, this is the segment that which we're going to analyze, and this can be analyzed in what kind of analysis that generally we do for businesses. Revenue assurance. Are we billing correctly? Are we billing enough? Is there billings that doesn't happen? And etc. Cost control, something that is given in terms of wastages, leakages, etc. Lead time. So it is where how fast we respond to our customer, how fast we respond to our vendors, how fast internally we respond. What is the response lead time that is there in our organization? Customer satisfaction. So these are all this analysis could be in any of the bucket. So it could be a descriptive analytics where you develop an MIS system. With that, you do a diagnostic analytics by digging deeper into that particular field. Or it could be even in terms of doing a perspective analytics by based on the output. So I'm not going to that. I'm just giving you certain overall global picture. So I believe that your client problems is something that you would know much better than me. So you can possibly fit this particular into your client environments in much better way. So customer satisfaction. So here when I say customer satisfaction, it also includes how are we measuring it, what is a yardstick for it, and etc. Then performance measurements, as I said, KPIs, team performances, etc. Risk management. Risk management is a good example of how many KYCs are not done for our customers. Okay. So an analysis of what is, see, there is a dashboard in a company that is going to put across just to throw a number on whether all the KYCs of our customers are available or not. Okay, that is a dashboard that is being developed. So there, for a company or an entity like NBFC or a bank, this dashboard is a serious risk. Because if you're not doing KYCs of customer, tomorrow if regulators or someone is going to ask a detail about a particular customer and you cannot come back and say that I don't know at that particular, it becomes a risk of reputation, it becomes a risk of statutory non-compliance and etc. So there, the risk management, data analytics as a part of putting it a dashboard is a huge thing. And optimization of resources, I've spoken enough about it. Vendor management, it's exactly the opposite of the customer management. So these are some global things that you can analyze in your customer. So how this analysis will come? What would be the outcome of this analysis? It could start with a simple business problem. Okay. So I'll just give a narrative of we were doing an analysis. We went into a client and said that I'm going to do can we do a data analytics for it? So the client started saying, okay, looks interesting, but what do you want to analyze? Certain clients doesn't give you a heads up. So you ask what kind of business problem that you face. So the client said, I don't know, but there is a hunch that my marketing team was not making enough calls to prospect. They're not making enough calls to prospective customers. That is something that is a field that I have. Now I have a case study for that, but now after he said that, what I started doing is, okay, let us analyze that particular item. So the first question is defining the business problem. I have defined the business problem as, are we making enough calls to our prospects? That is the first question. This definition of a question is very, very important. This approach is called as top to bottom approach. That is, we have defined our objective. Okay. So then what we did is, we go to our methodology stage. So the first is done. We have defined the business problem. Here it is, are my customer prospect, enough calls are made by the marketing. Next, how do I decide that what are the data sets that are required for me to analyze this particular point? So what are the data sets that I would need? I would need call logs. Okay. I would need executives who are all there. How many number of calls that these people made? A call log report, whatever is available in the system. What it could contain? It could contain the total number of time that they have spent in each call. It could be in seconds, it could be in minutes. There could be a log report. There could be instances where they have made calls from my office system. They could have also made calls today. the companies allow people, marketing executive, to call from a common phone also. It is not always that you have to call from a landline, because sometimes the customer might not be interested to look at a landline number and pick it up, because most of it is spam or something like that. So he might have made calls from the phone. So the data sets are calls directly from office landlines. Second, calls from the company offered mobile phones. So the first question we have to ask is, what are the data sources? Where can I get this information about? If I have to answer enough calls, are we making enough calls or not? First, I need the call data. So I'm going to understand the data sources where they have the call data. They might have a marketing tool. It could be a Salesforce. It could be Sell.do. It could be even SAP marketing module. It could be whatever. So first, I'm going to look at the data source from which I can get this particular data. There, when I'm understanding the data sources, I'm also going to look at what is a primary key there. How do I identify? Now, this question, if I say, are we making enough calls? Now, if my answer is going to be yes, the client is not going to be happy. So I might have to give him answers like, yeah, overall it is enough. But certain executives are not making enough calls. Certain executives are making enough calls. So I have to tell him that, so that he has to make a better decision. I might also have to tell them, saying that earlier they were making enough calls, these days they were not making enough calls. Okay. Or I have to tell them they are making enough calls, but they are not in a position to get connected to a customer. So you might have to look at whether you have to change your number before making your marketing attempt, whatever. So you cannot just like that give a one-liner to say yes. He has to make a decision based on that. No? So understand the data sources. For me to first, I have identified the problem. I'm going to break down that problem into even more better questions to answer, so that it will make decisions better. Second, I do an understanding of the data sources. Where can I answer certain questions? For example, the call log that I have is not segregated executive-wise. So the system inside is going to record the call that they made to a prospective customer. So they have the, let us say, a MARF number of a customer. So I don't have the customer number. I just have the some system generated number in place of the phone number. That is what is displayed because of the privacy reasons. So I don't have customer number, but I have, in lieu of customer number, an identifier and number of seconds that they have spoken and number of seconds or minutes that they have tried. Each call is there in a database as row number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But assuming this data doesn't contain who is the executive who's spoken on this particular call, then I might not be in a position to answer this question of which executive is making a better call and which executive is not. You get my point. So now we have to understand the data sources to know, to redefine our business problem on certain problems is not answerable because you don't have the data sets. So it goes to another case, not having enough data sources. Go back to a client and say, sir, this particular analysis will not give levels of details like this third level. You can only give answers to this level because you're not collecting this data. And you can tell to a client saying that we should start collecting this information because this will be useful for you to measure their individual performances and make your incentives based on that, your hire or fire decisions based on that, and etc. So now this goes to another tangent of redefining a system to collect some information or redefining its database to store certain more information. Okay, so that is a different part. Let us say that is parallelly happening. And we'll come back to our problem, saying that, okay, I am not going to answer him based on the executive level. I'm going to answer based on overall level. The team level performance is what I'm going to answer. Now, you can ask me why I have to know the team level performance. Assuming the team level performance is too low, then he's not bothered who's doing good, who's doing bad. He's going to call the team and going to tell them, boss, this is not going to be the way it has to work, and we need to gear up and make a better effort. So he has to make a decision. So that is required. Or he can say, if the call centers or data is enough, he might have look at, okay, the call data is enough. Is there any other problem that we are taking? So anyway, this analysis is useful for us. Now we have understood the data sources, and then we are going to collect the data sources from that particular data source. We are going to collect. Why there are two steps here is data could be there in different systems. Okay, in our example, it was there in a single system. But assuming we are going to look at a problem where data sets are there in two different systems. One is there in the accounting ERP, another data set is there in a marketing tool. Then we have to collect from two sources. So first is understanding the data sources, then collecting from the data sources, wherever the data are. Then extract, load, and transform data. This is where we might use our own tools. It could be Power BI, it could be Google Analytics, it could be using Python interface, it could be IDEA, it could be Excel, whatever. Depends on the problem, depends on the client, depends on the data set. These three is what going to make the decision for that. Then you do querying, profiling, and etc. And then with that, then you eliminate false positives and negatives. Look at the data sets. So take a look back. Generally, I tell all the data experts what my faculties have told me, or what my course instructors have told me is that do an analysis, take a step back, get out of the statistical purview, try to understand this particular output, what you are having from a business angle. Try to look at whether you're still making sense. Okay, if you're absolutely not making sense, but the data, you have reassured yourself that the data is correct, but still it is not making business sense, then you've found a revolutionary thing. But make sure that you have an output, come out of that statistical or data science mode, go to understand it from the business angle and try to look at whether it is making sense for you. If there could be certain false positive, because data is what, garbage in, garbage out. So there could have been scenarios like that. Let us take an example. In one of our analysis that we did in the past, we were trying to understand what reason someone is not buying from me. Okay. So there was a column in the database that had this information about why someone is not buying. Okay. Comments of a prospect, last comment about a prospect. If you see, when we analyzed it, we did a analysis of that. When we found that, let us say that you have 1,200 rejections. Just giving an example, 1,200 people didn't buy from us. And the reason that they have stated, if you analyze, somewhere around 96% of the reasons were saying price problem. Okay, 96% of the people said price as a problem. And now this is where the business insights comes into picture. Then when I took a step back to look at what is the price of a competitor and how different is this guy from him. Okay, and when we looked at the difference between a competitor and this person for certain products are only 10%. If he's selling at 100, this person was selling at 110. There were certain scenarios where the competitor was selling at 100 and this person was selling at 90, but still the people said price is a problem. Then we found out that the people who enter this particular data inside the system have a practice of, for every rejection, selecting the first option, that is price. So here it is a data problem. It is not, there is a problem with the price. It's a problem with the data set. So when you analyze and provide very logical reasoning, you have to eliminate certain false positive negative. That is where your business knowledge comes handy. You have to take a step back, look at it whether this insight is right. Okay, that is very important. Then communicate the result with the board. Now, once you do this, what they are going to do, either it will result in two things. One, we have found out certain things. Let us say in our example, in the call center example, what we decided, we found out that they are not making enough effort. They are not making enough calls inside the system. Now, then what would happen is the management decides, okay, what are we going to do? Here, it requires a business process change. We have to define certain SOPs. It could be a problem where they are not aware that they might have to do this much number of calls. So define SOPs, define tracking. Instead of doing it on a monthly basis, can we do it on a weekly basis, or can we automate it? Depends on the need of the customer. Define KPIs. So there is a business process change. We have found out that there was not enough calls. So what we are going to do about it? Management is acting, saying, I'm going to act upon it, saying that you have to make enough calls. So how do you make them to make enough calls? Make their KRAs, key requirements, as making this much number of calls. Track then and there. Track on a weekly basis, so that if they are not adhering, you can correct them on an easy basis. Put an SOP saying they might not be aware that they have to do this much number of calls. So make a call. They might not be aware of how to do a call. What should be, for example, there could be certain instances where they are waiting for, say, 10 rings for a customer or a prospect. Just saying, there was a scenario like that. So then you make a better training for them, saying that, okay, don't wait for 10 rings. Do it after 5-6 rings. Bring an industry expert. Try to do a training for them. Things like that. Change in terms of agreement. You could variabilize their pay, whatever. So here there is a business process change. I'm not going to what output they have to decide, but I'm saying what should be the thinking process. So there could be an analytics report will direct the management to do any of these two things. One, change in the business processes. Other aspect would be no change is required. As of now, things are going pakka, things are going good. But you don't know that tomorrow something like this can go bad. Correct. Tomorrow this might not be happening. So build a dashboard towards it so that you monitor this particular items, so that at any point in time, if this goes bad in the future also, you would know at an instance. So an output of a business analytics report could drive the management to decide two things. Bring it inside whatever we have reported, that particular analysis can be brought inside their MIS statements, could be built as a dashboard or etc. Or you can do certain business process change. Generally, dashboards as a case is born only based on the past analyzing effect. So you analyze the past data for 1 or 2 months. You look at this particular information is critical for the managers to make better decisions, and then bring it under MIS. There are certain items that are brought in the MIS because of the age-old techniques. Like there is always said, no, you can learn from two things, either from your own mistakes or you can learn from someone else's mistakes, or you have to adopt industry best practices so that your mistakes are less. So certain MIS items that we bring in, it is not that the management has to would have done a past analysis engagement to build a dashboard. It is an industry dashboard. Entire industry is monitoring it in this particular manner because industry has evolved over a period. Okay, so you might add certain new elements to it, but we should be good with the basics. So generally, if an organization is developing a dashboard, it would be on two things. One, industry knowledge, business users requirement, because he is day in, day out about the business. So he might need saying that if I know this information, I can act better. Or unless and until I know this information, I cannot act better. So I need this part of my dashboard. So that's how dashboards are generally done. But add on to it is you do a separate analytics engagement, and you have certain insights, and you believe that these insights are useful to them. And you need not wait for an external expert to come and redo it on a regular basis. But can it be part of the MIS system? Can it be automated so that decisions are better or faster? So in the analytic environment, we are going to start with a business problem and go to look at what are the data sets associated with it, collect data sets from the sources, do analysis with our tools and with our knowledge, arrive at a first result, look for business cues, eliminate false positives and negatives, and then at last communicate the same to the board. Now with this, there could be two outcomes. One, either there could be a change in the business processes, or they might feel that this has to be monitored on a monthly, quarterly, or whatever basis, brought inside an MIS or brought inside a dashboard. This is one scenario. Second is developing a proper dashboard for an entity. There you take up industry insights, how industry does a dashboard. Second, what is the business user requirement, what he needs to make a better decision. Okay, in the ICAI, there is something called as need to do, need to know basis. So any rights to a user is given need to do basis. Need to do and need to know basis. So now if he has to do something, he needs to have certain information. So dashboards help them to have that information with that. User logins inside a system is also given using the same principle. Dashboards also built using the same principle. So you need to know this to make a better decision. Okay, so this is what we have got about. So I hope the listeners are happy with whatever is happening till now. Is there any specific questions or something like that? Is there certain questions or something?
No, sir, we don't have any questions as of now. We hope they will be posted at the end of the session. Anyway, we'll ask them to post in Q&A panel. Once they update it, we'll share it at the end of the session. Will you be taking any break now, or else we'll be continuing the session? Sir? You want a 5 minutes break?
I mean, I am comfortable. It depends on the listeners actually.
So if you want to continue, then you can continue, or else we'll have a 5 minutes break and we'll start session again, sir.
I think we can continue on. So it should not be a problem.
And those who have questions, they can post in Q&A panel, sir. So they will just compile it and share it at the end of the session. Okay, sure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So now we'll go to certain case studies. The proof of the pudding is in eating. So let's try to understand this by way of certain case studies. Now what we did is we had a these are certain industry best practices from which we have taken, and like our past experiences doing analytics for the last 4-5 years and etc. So now a real estate company came to us. This data that I'm going to present or something is not a real data. I have just taken the concept and put my own data sets to throw a case study pattern, because I have a huge confidentiality clause by which restrict me to show any of my client insights and information. So here we are just taking the concept and building our own these have been built using our own data. So a real estate company wanted to know where shall be my next project considering my inquiries. It's a beautiful question. So the client came back and told me, saying that, okay, now I have 4 JDA agreements that is on the pipeline. There is a land at Cholinganallur. There is a land in, let us say, Mylapore. Don't ask me where is the land in Mylapore. Just give me an example. There is a land at Boru. There is a land at Nungambakam. So I have inquiries, people asking me that there are land at these particular different varied locations. Now, can you tell me where should I start the project? Okay. So one sketch example is very simple. Is that anywhere you put a real estate project, it might sell provided you provided good quality, because every area has a customer inside. So there is no thought or a problem towards it. So it is not that you should not put a project at Cholinallur. It is not that you're not to put a project at Cholinallur. There are not instances that you should put a project in. Okay. There are not going to be instances where we are saying, okay, there shouldn't be a question followed at you should not be having any. There will be a Q&A session. So if there is some request on that, there is a Q&A session after next to this. So everywhere put a project, it might self-provided you have certain basic principles in your item right. That is a general norm we follow. But when my resources are having a constraint, for example, now I can only start with 2 projects. I have money only for that. So now this question becomes more valuable for that particular business to know what is my best chance of putting up the project when I have 4 or 5 options in front of me. I have someone coming from Porur saying he's a landowner and he wants to join with me for deploying a project. There is someone from Nungambakam is coming in. There is someone in Cholinganallur that is coming. There is someone from Sengalpattu is coming. So now I have certain inquiries from the businesses. What should be my point of starting? It's a simple question, but has a good answer, has a good insight associated with this. So what we did this particular item is, we went back and said he is having a restriction because there are at least already 5 projects that are up already. So he has restriction on how many much more projects that he can do. So he said, fair enough, now let us start. This is my budget and I can select only 2 projects now. So we started going back to know 2 things. One, there are databases available with Credai, there is a government open source data called data.gov.in, which gives you a lot of data, a lot of insights on a lot of data, insights, few insights, a lot of data sets from the outside segment. With that, can we try to help them out to say what would be his best bet? We are not saying you should not put a project there. That's not the outcome of this analytics. It is where is the best bet to put the project. I mean, the answer is completely different. If you say here you should not put a project, you should have better reasons for it. My report is not going to throw that. My report is going to throw what is the best bet. Okay. Now, for the best bet to come, what could be our analysis? What we can throw? Okay. Before we go to answer this question, let us take a small step on if there is a data analytics report, what it should contain. Okay, you're not going to go to the details of every one of these, and we're going to share the summary of it. What it should contain is, among all things that we are going to include, starting from a cover page, what is your table of contents? How is your executive summary? Summarizing the entire report into a few paragraphs. Introductory section. Introductory section is where I'm going to define the business problem in a much more detailed manner to a client, because we presume that he has understood the business problem, but you have to put an introductory session so that you tell him that this is where I have understood the business problem. So if he feels that, like for example, his question was, what is the best bet? Where can I choose an apartment? Okay, that is what I understood. But if he is asking me a question, Venkat, you tell me where I should not start a project. Okay, then the answer is different, or then the analysis pattern, the way we does is entirely going to be different. So I have to do a different methodology altogether for that. You get my point. So here we'll have an introductory section to define the problem and define the data sets and etc. This is a very important section. While people say research is a very important section, this is not a disclaimer section. I would be very honest with you, saying that okay, he's going to put all the disclaimers in the introductory section. Not that way. The introductory session is bringing both of us into a same page, or evaluate whether both of us have understood the problem in the manner that he wanted me to understand. Client is the king always. So in the literature view is where I mean, in certain instances, I've borrowed certain thought processes from some existing model. For example, we did a client where he wanted to understand what would be his probability of default, what is required under Ind AS, IFRS 9 or Ind AS. So now he asked us, how can you develop it? Then I have borrowed a model called Pluto Touche model. So I have brought from that. Now I have to say that I have brought this model, and that is where I'm going to look at this particular analytics report, right? So literature review is going to literature in a report. The literature review, the section is going to cover all this. Okay. Then methodology, as I told you, how I have done this analysis, how I have here I'll talk about what I have done in the false positives and negatives. How I have ensured that the data is not grossly wrong. Like I quoted an example saying that in the price as a reason for rejection. Okay, there the problem was that the data key was wrong. So I am going to say in the methodology section how I have what I would say thought about this particular how I have handled false positive negatives. How do I ensure that the data is not grossly wrong? All that. Result section. This is where I'm going to come out with a descriptive statistics and illustrative graphics, hypothesis testing, all that. In that, the very important thing that you have to note is two things. One is a descriptive statistics and an illustrative graphics. A picture depicts very well. So a good graphic to present a client. Second, what do you infer from that? A descriptive statistic, a description about it. Because today, when you see, I have been, let us talk about some of the flip sides of data dashboarding. I have seen where dashboards are shown left, right, center to clients. And the dashboard is not useful to the client because he doesn't know what to interpret out of the dashboard. Okay, there is a surface graph that is given to a company where they put a surface area graphing for their vendors to know how their vendors are geographically spread. His business problem was not that. He didn't have a question about it. More so, the reader of that particular dashboard didn't know what is a surface graph. Okay. So what is very important is that in our output, we should have a descriptive statistic and we should have an illustrative graphics. So and you should demonstrate, the graphic should be self-demonstratory. It should not be like I have to explain the graphics to someone. It could be certain complex cases. Yes, it is. If there is an explanation that is needed, you have to write a small paragraph about it. So a report that you are not giving a direction to a client, a dashboard that is not going to direct a client to do something. In dashboards, you cannot direct a client to do something, but you have to depict it somewhere. You could use conditional formatting. Let us take for an example that you have, it could be a very simple Excel report. Okay, I'll just show you this by way of a very simple Excel idea. Everyone could see the Excel now?
Yes, sir, we can see it.
Okay. So let us say that the date and sales for that particular period. And let us add a salesman as well. So you have A, B, F, right? That's called G, H, K. Everyone in a position to see Excel, or
Sorry, sir.
I mean, I hope everyone
Everyone can see it, sir. They can see.
So now let us say that we are going to start with 0, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Or I'll do something else. Okay. So I have 25,000 line items where you have sales data across periods. Okay. Random sales period. Okay. Now I'm going to put a rand number. Say it is per day. So let us say that per day you have made a sales of 1,000, or it could be even 0. Or let us say that this data set, wherever there are no dates, it means that there is no sales done. Okay. 500 to say 12,000. So this is a random data. Okay. So now what I'm going to do here is very important is, let us say that this is the base data and I'm going to provide this as a report to a management. Okay. I'm talking about dashboarding. So you're not there to explain to a client. Okay. That is very important. We should understand it with that premise. So I'm going to put the sales manager, or I'll just put a simple pivot. So now what I have is I have a salesman. So I'll put it this in columns. I don't want years. I wanted quarters. So just for simplicity, I am having sales. Here, I think we should have had a very big random number. Let us take one particular year. So don't tell me that you are having years till 2031. Okay. Just a random depiction of the data. I just wanted to build a database here. Now, let us assume that you're going to build a table like this in your dashboard, okay, where you are not in a position to write something, or we can make this as quarters so that it will also be a little bit meaningful. So we are talking about 14 quarters, last 14 quarters. And this is what is a data that we are going to have, or it even could be months if you are going to eliminate items. It could be months. So I'm just creating a case study here just to throw what is important for a reader to understand. Now, I have seen a lot of dashboards where you have a dashboard that is defined like this. Now, these are months. So it is possible to develop this in Power BI, or you can develop as a dashboard itself in Excel by using certain tools in the front. By using you have certain options, like if you go to this developer window, and you can go to this particular chart and build slices to it or whatever. So I am not coming into that. The mechanism to build a dashboard in Excel is not very difficult. So you can make it easily. Now, if you have this report in front of you as a salesperson, okay, what would happen is that we are not in a position to interpret anything out of this. Correct? So, if you're presenting it as in a form of a dashboard, if it is possible, if you're presenting as in a report, it's okay. You can write a summary of this. What is your inference of this? You can write. But if you're preparing a dashboard where the client is going to look at it by himself, or the user is going to look at it himself, what is very important is I will define 3 matrices. So, salesperson having lesser average sale or lesser sale than average sales of average sales. Month where where the sales is lesser than average of that year. Now you want these two numbers so that let us say this is a COVID hit month. So you want user to interpret it. I would start, if it is an Excel statement, I would start with a conditional formatting where I'm going to say to the user or a reader, okay, that you put a conditional formatting here with a rule that the rule, okay, I will provide based on cell values. I'll define a rule itself here. Just give me a minute. So I'm going to put a rule where if a particular cell is based on below average of the entire lot, okay, what is a salesperson for all these 12 months? His value is below the average of the selected range. Put a value of, I'm going to put a fill effect. I'm going to put it as negative. So here, this particular item, these are some of the instances where the salesperson average is lesser than the overall lot, or a particular month that is less than the overall. Now, I have not put any of these. This is a background work that we are doing. Now, if I'm going to be the user of this, I know that the items that I've marked in yellow are something that needs the attention of the reader. Okay, so either if you're building a dashboard, what is very important is that you should either provide a cue to the reader where you can put a what I would say. There are cases where you're going to now we can, with that we can say if this is a case, you can say positive, negative, and etc., making it a little binary or categorical. Or you can also do something like you're going to make a small text box associated with that and present it to a company. If there is a data scientist, data analyst who's going to sit in and present this report to a management, I'm not talking about a dashboard scenario, where you're going to interpret, ask the user to interpret it, then this could be an etc. So we'll go to our question problem that we had. So what is important in the result section is descriptive statistics and illustrative graphics. I see certain questions that is coming up. So what I'll do is, anyway, we have a Q&A session. If someone is going to have a question, I mean, they can list it down at that particular interval. And if someone is from the end, SIRC, are they monitoring the question, or that is also present? So it will be
Sir, we are monitoring, sir. We are compiling it. We'll take it up at the end.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay.
So we are having a question in front of us where he asked us, okay, where shall be my next project? Now, so first, business problem is defined. The business problem is where shall be my next project? Okay. Now, with my available resources, I can do only 2 projects. So I have to set up. I cannot place it all the 10 locations. I have to select any of the 2 locations. So any 2 among 10 opportunities have come for me. So now have come for me. Now, can we decide by using darts? Can we decide points? So it's not possible. Earlier, what we will do generally is that we would have decided based on, for example, a hunch. Okay, we have already done 2 projects here that has become successful. So let us go there. Or they could decide saying, someone has said that this area is emerging. Okay, we'll do that. And there is some people are always saying that any apartment at Choli will get sell off, so we'll put it there. So there's no decisions were, right? It is not that there were no decisions taken in the past. It was, but it was based on 1 or 2 hunches that an organization might have. Now we are going to define that the best bet for the next project will be based on inquiries from prospects. Now, there are 1 lakh people in the 1 lakh people who have made saying that they want to buy an apartment. All these 1 lakh people would have had some preference elsewhere. Someone wanted in Velachery, someone wanted Solingaluru, someone wanted Chengalpet, someone wanted Replican, someone wanted etc. So I'm going to decide my decision based on where the inquiries are more simple, where there has been better inquiries. Point 1. So there is a next question. So you have defined business problem. The most possible solution is also defined. Now comes the next question. How do we get the inquiries? How do you get where a particular person who has inquired wants an apartment? How do you know that so many of X wanted in Nungambakam, Y wanted in Malapur, another person wanted in Hardwarepet, another person wanted? How do you know that? There are 2 ways in it. 1. So what are my data sources? The data sources are inquiries inside my database or my client environment. So he is using a data set. He is using an ERP by which he is monitoring all the inquiries. Not all people have bought not all the inquiries have materialized into output. So there are scenarios where a particular person has inquired. He's having a project at Choli. The other person wanted a apartment at Poro. So he would have called this inquiry person and said, our sales executive was spoken. He's saying, where are you? Sir, we are so and so, and we want to look at for a property at Poro. Then he will say, no, I have a property at Choli. Then he said, no, thank you. I'm looking only for Poro or nearby, something like that. He would have said that. So I have record of that in my own database. Now the problem is this could be in a string format. Okay, this might not be there in a proper format. Okay. So the question is, the genuinity of the data is there, but the format is a problem. Okay, you will not have look. The best way to identify a particular location is using a pin code. But a guy who's making an inquiry would not have said that I want an apartment at 60005 or 6003, 600, but would not have said that. He would have said Velacheri. So now the problem for us is the person who's recording this inquiry inside the system in a database would have recorded Velacheri as VELAICHEYRY or RI or VELA, something like that. So there is a problem in this particular item on how this is getting recorded. So first, my data set is there. Second, the problem with that. Second, I would have databases from CRADA. I mean, the CRADA is a compedum or chamber for my developers. So I might have a database. I might have public source data. All three I'll have. And here again, the format could be a problem. Here also the format could be a problem. So this is where my data sources are, and this is where the format problems are. So what is my methodology? What is my output again? I'll reiterate it. If I have a data to say pin code wise, number of inquiries, if I know where the inquiries is much, which two pin codes that is stopping that particular inquiry, I'll try to select a project there. That is my best possible bet in this particular problem. So what I need for that, I need pin code and inquiry, or let us call area and inquiry. I'm using pin code as a measure, or I would call it pin code as an identifier to data, identifier to area. So what I need is area and number of inquiries from that area, in that requirement in that area. That's what I want. So what is my data sets? Inquiries that are there in my database, databases from CRADA or someone, and public sources. These are my three data sets. But the next question in front of me is this data absolutely fine? No, the answer is there is a problem in the format. Okay, so someone would have typed X, someone would have typed Y, someone would have typed all that. So for my methodology, first I'm going to look at data which is there and try to understand what kind of problems are there. So in this example, what we did is we had a word cloud. A word cloud or natural language processing. We used two techniques. Here what we did is we took out from all these three databases, there is a column or there is a field that listed down all the inquiries. So from there we pulled out words that is sounding areas in Chennai are that is near to Velacheri, near to areas in Chennai. So first we did that, saying that I have a list of areas in Chennai that is available in the public domain, and I asked the system to pick up any value from here, any value that is associated with these particular items, or any of the values that is sounding similar. One alphabet problem, two alphabet problems, you pick it up and build a data set for me. So with this, what would happen is I will have a secondary data set which will contain all area names inside my data sources, area names inside my data sources, and related or similar names. And now what is important is, let us take that particular data set that was originally there. What is very important is that you assign a primary key to every row. For example, inquiry number 1, inquiry number 2, inquiry number 3, you assign a primary key to it. And from now on, if from primary inquiry 1, 2, 3, you have taken all the words from there, and at any later point in time, we should be in a position to go back to this particular inquiry data sets and combine it. Unless until we do that, we will not know which area had an inquiry. I hope I'm making sense. So just to give an example now, let us take three areas. Adayar, ADHAYR, this also Adayar. Okay. Now, inquiry this is inquiry 1. Requirement or place is Adyar. And the number is here. Okay, 1 inquiry. So inquiry number 2, I have a 1 inquiry. Inquiry number 3, I have 1 inquiry. Something like that. So I have, this is table 1, okay, or my primary data set. Okay. Now the secondary data set, table 2, is my area name and pin code associated with it. So that I will use an identifier. So I'll use Adyar, which is the correct spelling, and I'll use a pin code. The Adyar pin code should be somewhere around something like this. I don't know the exact pin code, so don't pardon me if I'm not using the correct one. Okay, so I have table 1 and table 2. So what I'm doing is, so let us take these from all these inquiries. I'm going to provide a table called table 3, or it could be a scenario where from the inquiries, not looking for property, because an inquiry here, what is our primary data set? It is our lead data where people have passed the inquiry and they have set reasons for rejection. Okay, so not looking for property. Okay, so inquiry number 5 has said price as a problem. You get my point. So now from here, I have to pick what is related to areas for me. So you get my point. So now I'm going to use, so what is there here as a similar item. Okay. So we used an NLP, which will throw my data from the word. If I use the word called Adyar here, I have all the areas of Chennai here, and this data set is also not simple. It ran somewhere around to 70,000 to 70,000. But while that is not a very big data set, but for that client we had this much data. So we are going to look at words that is depicting area or nearby to area, and then you have the secondary data set. From there, you out like this. This latitude longitude is not relevant at all, but this is how the data was there for a public data for GPS coordinates. So I just use that. I have not used latitude longitude anywhere. So I had data set like this, and I had another master. In our language we call like this. Now what I did is I used multiple techniques. One is word cloud techniques and NLP techniques and all that, similar words, similar sounding words and things like that, and built a table like this. So this is my database that I'm going to work on. Okay, so if you want to have a session on NLP or how the word cloud works, that's a topic by itself. So I'm not going very detailed into it, but I'm just going to review a scenario based of it. How data science can be useful to business, and let us say that you have this information with you. Okay, how do you start interpreting the data? Let us put it simpler like that also. The next case study is a little simpler, where you don't need to do a lot of massaging to the data, where the data set is little plain, and from there you start. Okay, so we have this pin code, area, city, latitude, longitude, and count. So now we come back to the question that we had. Where shall be my next project considering my inquiries? He said his inquiry because he was aware only had inquiries, but we could pull out certain data from the public domain and etc. and things like that. Okay. So what we did is we created a visualization where this is a map visualization. So I will redo this for you. This is Power BI, where I have a visualization called map. And in my map visualization, I'm going to put as a location stick. The only problem is that there was one overlap. There was one item on Singapore also. So that is a false positive that you have to eliminate. And my count is here. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is, this is a self-explanatory report where I told you I'm not going to work around with the client to know whether I need not put certain comments about it. So this is a report like that. So we have a beautiful graph, locational analytics, which talks about the various areas of Chennai and the number of inquiries he had. Bigger the circle means better the inquiry. So which means if he has to select a best bet for the project, it could be somewhere in this location or it could be somewhere in this location. You get my point? Getting a point now? Yes. So what it means here is, I am going to look at where there was maximum inquiries, and with the maximum inquiries, I have put it in a form of a map inside. See, if I'm going to have the same item, I'll just put another visual for you. Okay. So I will just put a visual as say graph or a table. Table is a better item for you. Okay. So I'm going to say pin codes, and I'm going to say what is my to put values, both pin codes here, and pin codes are I don't have a count, so I'll show where value as don't summarize, and I'm going to put count to it. So let us assume I'm going to give this in this particular order, and I can use a conditional formatting. It's not possible. So show items, or and put a filter or a formatting that some show values as percentages, or I can exclude certain items. For example, here I have put that, and I'm going to put another filter saying that, let's say the count here, and filter type is, I want to have a basic top 10 items. So show top 5 items. Top 5 items, and by value of count again. Apply this filter. So it will restrict me to certain 10 or 15 items. I have put more than that. So it will find out the top value. So here, after you had 70 inquiries, the lowermost value is 6. So because of that, it is showing all the pin codes that has this value. So you cannot find out only item 5. I hope this makes sense, because I have put top 5 and people are getting a different number. So it should not be like that. The reason is that the minimum values, when you look at the top 10 items, top 5 items based on value, the lowermost is 6. So it will put all the pin codes that is related to that count. So that's the reason why it is coming like that. And I can make a little bit of a more styling to it, make it a little bigger, improve the font and things like that. Okay, so let us say values. I can change the font color. I can improve the values into, say, 14 or 15. Okay. So now the question in front of us is this depicts the answer better, or this. If you eliminate that Singapore code, it will work well. So that is one false positive that we can eliminate easily. Okay. And you can restrict your latitude, longitude aspect as well. For example, let us say that I'll put alone latitude alone here. Okay. Then also your average of that. So actually here the data type is little different. So that's the reason why it's not coming. So I can change that. But I can restrict that false positive in nowhere. So that's not the whole point here. The whole point is here you can cross verify, look at, go dig deeper. Okay. So that's not a very big problem here. What we look at it. So that false positive elimination is nothing. Okay. So here what we are going to look at is if you put an instance here, okay, it will show how many counts had at this particular pin code, how many instances we had in this particular pin code. So you can make a better decision using that. Even you put street wise. So which road you had, radial view you had 8 inquiries, things like that. This pin code had this much inquiries. So your decision making is much more better, much more faster. Imagine a map report for sales across India, sales across even one particular state. Be too good. So I think people are in a position to view that instead of presenting it like this is going to make a huge difference to a client and a huge difference to the manner in which this particular data works. Clear? I hope clear on this. Okay. So what we are doing is the first question that we started. A real estate company wanted to understand where shall be my next project considering my inquiries. We gave him report saying that based on the inquiries available from public data, from your data and other things, we did a lot of massaging. So he doesn't require all that. In the result section. So we're going to say the best possible outcomes are these 4 areas. And you can also tell them that you see we are presenting it in a form of a graph, and the board presentation is going to be so beautiful when you're going to do that. So I would be happy to take the other 2, but let's take the sales function because that is interesting and it's not going to take a lot of time. Here, as I said in this case study, I have actually what I did is I have added an element of a text box here. Okay, because this is a weekly updation that I'm going to do to a client and give them this report on a weekly basis and discuss with the client on the data input. I'm a data consultant for that team. So this is not a client data anyways, but what I've done is let us take here the sales report. Okay, this is a very simple metrics where you have names of the sales people and you have from 1 to 31st last month, and we're going to discuss that in 3rd of the month. So 1 to 31st months, we are looking at what are the days in which they made a sale. Okay, and if I have put a conditional formatting here so that the report is little bit more self-explanatory. So if I'm going to put this to a client and I've put a remark saying that there are days when the user is not logged in the sales app to make a sale, and there are certain cases where the last sale is 5 days prior. So it was the last few days, it was never happening out. Okay, if I'm going to put a report like that, the way that sales team is going to the user is going to appreciate it is going to be different. Okay, so I have now thought that the user might not, if I am just putting this box without putting the conditional formatting here, then the user might not be understanding the efficacy of it in a much more detailed way. So I've put a conditional formatting. Then what I've also done is I have put a table here where I am saying DE Q and W, these users need certain, they might have had a problem, or they might have had certain instances of a particular issue, because their last sale was not immediate. If you see, their last sales were done at different dates. So, which means that there is a loss of sales, or the users have not made adequate sales in a particular days of the month, which needs introspection, which there could be like they would have talked to customers, but they were not, the customers were not happy, or the prospects were not happy about it. There could be possible reasons for it. So what is very important here is that here I'll just put all these filters or visualizations later so that you can view this report in a much better way. So what I have done here is that here you have date-wise the report of sales and the last login, the latest login of a particular user. So assuming this report comes on 1st of the month, okay, or 2nd of the month for the last month, to head of a department where he is going to list all the sales executives across regions. Here, let us say in this example, we are talking about some 10 users who are spread geographically, who have different sales heads, who are not in the same line of activity. Okay, this is where the computational capability and the way that decisions can be made using data comes handy. So I am sitting at Delhi and I'm going to look at the entire sales department in a single dashboard without requiring the respective sales heads to respond to me, or wait for them to compile the data and things like that. So this is one such report. So here we are also adding some comments about it. Here, even if I don't put this comment, people know, okay, there are certain red. Here, the maximum red mark is for this user. Okay, and D is a user who's having a maximum red mark that is also depicted here. So it is explanatory by itself, but here the engagement warrants that you put a comment to it. So that way, what happens is that you put a direction to your client and help sure that the business process makes a better decision. So this is the third case study I wanted to present to everyone. Sales department want to know how many sales are made in a day, where sales manager wanted to know this across his geographical domain. Here the data was played quite simple. So what we did is, here there is a table that is going to tell about number of sales that he has made across days. So here we didn't do any massaging to the data. Here the system had this particular data. I pulled that data and uploaded it in dashboard, developed a dashboard for the client so that he can look at it automatically. So here I have not, I'm not trying to do any data change, but there are certain instances, like for example, we have to put the database connection from that particular environment to Power BI. Some requirement like that was there. So once we have done with that, it was smooth, right? We didn't have to look at this particular dashboard on a daily basis. If a new user is added, the dashboard updates automatically. So all that is a good thing. For example, I go here and I go to this particular table, and if I have an option to say refresh data, that's all. It is going to throw the data from the existing system where it is connected, so it will pull the data automatically. So I don't have a requirement to update it. I've pulled the login of here, saying the date when you use the filters here. I have made certain filters here on this logon date in such a way that it is not going to take the certain instances. Like here, if you see, it will not take the date. You can put a filter that it should be always the current month. Okay, so it should not. If you want this dashboard to have the current month alone, you can have that. And Power BI is also enabling you something like a question box. So it helps you to say, okay, put a question in your data modeling. Develop a Q&A. So you can set up a Q&A in such a way that if a user is looking at this dashboard and has a question, okay, then this has to be set out. So I'll take that as a separate timeline considering what the time is. So here you can develop a questionnaire in such a way that you can ask if the user has certain questions by himself, he can answer that by itself. And this helps you across functioning. For example, I press C, you get this data for C, you press data for D alone, all that. That kind of integration is also possible. This is possible not only in Power BI. So it is only an example to say that how decision making is a more effective. So if cross filtering and cross originations are all possible in most of the most of the BI reports. I am not marketing Power BI here. So it is that it is available in any, for example, Google Analytics or an open source like Metabase, or you develop a system in Python also, you have that. I mean, it's not that it's not there in other softwares, but I'm just saying that these functionalities are available. So you press and come out of the report. So everything is getting selected. All that, the cross linking, all that is possible. Okay. So coming back, we have taken two simple case studies where the business can appreciate it much better. The first case study is a good example of a business case study, business analytic engagement or a problem. The third is a good dashboard that it contains. So the dashboard has conditional formatting in it. It explains the data by itself. It has automated. It refreshes by the data by itself. All that is there so that the reader can interpret the results by himself. So we have discussed what should be the contents of the data analytics report before we started with that. A good data analytics report should contain all of this. It should contain the methodology sections where we are going to detail the massaging that you're going to do the data. Not in a very detailed manner, but in a manner so that any other data scientist also in a position to appreciate your discussion section. Discussion section is where you would have had a certain, what I would say, certain contrary, certain findings that you are there. How have you handled that? Okay, so let us, for example, in the same scenario, that what it is quite possible that you have done your marketing in a specific way so that your inquiries are also coming from only single area. It's quite possible, right? So if you are dependent on your own inquiries, you have a project at Velachery, so you marketed at Velachery well, so you would have got more inquiries in Velachery. So how can you use this to decide your future project? That could have been a question one. So where we discuss that particular point and say, okay, we have not just relied upon the inquiries that is there in the system. We have used databases from ThreadEye. We have used public source databases. So it ensures that the skew in the data is avoided. You get my point. That saying that only a particular way is getting avoided. This report structure is the output of the IBM Press book on getting started with data sciences, making sense of data with analytics. It was one of the first book I started reading when I started with data, and this particular structure of data analytics report is provided there. So I mark due courtesies to that particular report and the author. So what it takes, what you need for data analytics. One, understand data and how to use it. So understanding data, like, is this data numeric, including data types, including the business impact of it. Understanding data is, you should understand what is data about, numerical, thing, what I would say, categorical, date, number, whatever. And also the business implications of it, what this data signifies to business. Second, how to use it. There are certain operations you cannot do to a categorical data. Okay, what is the you cannot do a categorical you cannot do certain analysis using categorical data. You can do certain analytics using a time data. You get my point. So you should also have an awareness on what we can do about this particular data also. So just to give an example, let us take employee ID and say number of days present. So 1, 2, or 10,001, 10,000. Okay. So number of days present 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, something like that. Okay. Now, if you're doing an analysis, if you're going to put some of this, just because it is numerical, excuse me, it is wrong. Because this is a categorical data. This is an identifier. Okay, it is a way to identify a employee ID, employee. So employee ID, while it is looking numerical, you cannot do numerical operations here because it makes no sense. So you should understand the data and also how to use it. That is first. Second is collect data from multiple sources, then handle data errors and process, analyze the data, start sharing information. The next step is an artificial intelligence where most of the process that we are talking about is done by the system per se. You have a very little intervention of a data scientist. This is what it takes. So these are some of the common tools. As I'm running out of time, I will not talk in detail about any of this. But these are some of the brilliant tools that are available with data scientists. Some are free source, like for example, R Studio is a free source, and certain are on an SAS model, certain are on a license model. Open source, NIME is an open source that is available on without any. It's not a SaaS based model; it's an open source. So things like that. So where to start? Okay. Now, I would say that we should start by certain basic courses on data, like edX, Coursera, Udemy, just to understand, like what I told you about. We might think that it is numerical data. I'm not saying we will, but I'm saying that we should entail that this particular number is different from any other number. You get my point. So that appreciation, I'm not saying it will not come. It's quite common sense in this scenario, but there are certain instances where it is requires certain amount of knowledge updation that we need. So start with some basic courses that talks about what is data, what is the categories of it. Okay, so how do we analyze data and things like that. So there are a lot of courses that is available in the market. Okay, so now the data science itself, training in data science itself is a big field by itself. So you have plenty of courses online. So start with that. Then start using certain BI tools in your existing environment. So let us take you're doing an internal audit, okay, and start putting your reports in Power BI, okay, because what it takes in an internal audit engagement is that you're going to have observation, you're going to have inferences and etc. So if you can build it in a small page here of your data set, it'll start showing a different variant to it. Anyway, you can add a text box to output your data set. So start using certain Power BI tools. So let us, for example, it even be starting more of Excel. Okay, I'm not saying we should start with an existing tools. Excel is a good tool to start with Power BI because we are also having an hands-on experience with that. But start using it for BI purposes. Start building a small dashboards that are there even within our organizations. For example, how many of us have our own dashboards for our client? Like, what are the projects that are going on live? How many hours are spent by our people on that particular project? And what is the client outstanding? All that. Can we start building a small Excel dashboard within our own organization? Start small. It's nothing wrong. So start with BA tools. Start using this particular knowledge that you have for your existing clients in terms of their problems. Using your first two steps, whatever you have learned, start trying to know whether we can implement it for our certain clients, for your existing clients. Can we solve that problem? Then as we further do, we will have a data vertical that is developed. So this is an order that we follow or I follow. So I'm just going to start with that. So with this, thanks for your patient listening. I am going to be open for questions. So just to summarize in a minute, data changes business because it helps make very good real life decisions and give direction for the business to make better decisions. That is a summary of the session. And intricates is how do we present your reports better? How do you analyze your data better? How do you understand the business problem better, or something that are sub steps to single one liner? So I'm open to questions. So,
Yes, sir. I'll just share it to my screen, sir.
Thank you so much, Venkat. So we will take up the questions now. Venkat, you can read, or if you prefer, I can also read.
okay,
It's
I
from
can read it out. So can data analytics be done by using a simple model in ERP with RFQs, conversion sales order? People do not populate it. Okay. So see, first is that tool doesn't decide your data analytics engagement. Your data analytics engagement decides your tool. So I would start business objective, and decide what is the data sources for it, and then decide what is the tool will best fit for it. Okay, Excel by far would fit for now. For example, Excel might not be a best fit immediately. You get my point. So there you might have to rely on R or Python. And say, for example, you want to visualize your data in a much more better way, then Power BI or Tableau would be a right tool to use, because their visualization techniques are much better than Excel. Having said that, you can still do it in Excel. So it depends on the volume of data. So I have seen a case where we have done a log analysis where the number of line items were somewhere around, we reviewed the logs of 50 lakh line items. So I cannot use Excel for it. It's going to not going to help me out. I use Nime for doing that because it's an open source and also gives me a huge platform to play. So your question, the answer to your question is, can we start with Excel? Exactly, yes, but depends on the engagement or depends on the problem and data. And productivity for it. Yeah, this is something that's doable. You're talking whether we can do this for a business environment. For another environment, yeah, you can possibly do. So the question again here is that a business problem? So can we do this? Instead of going by saying that can we do this analysis or that analysis, we'll start from top down. What analysis the client needs or the business owner needs? Which analysis is going to help me to solve a problem or improve my efficiency or performance? If you feel that, okay, this is an analysis, if I understand this particular analysis will help me out, then there's nothing stopping to start doing that analysis. With the output of it, you can decide whether you want to continue with it or you want to stunk that off. So for example, here, if I provide you certain output as case study, it is not that we have only hit the target right on the first instance. So I have also done certain more analysis than what I'm presenting here for the same client, and I felt that those are not giving meaningful information to a client, so I stopped doing it. So it is like a bit of, I won't say it's a trial and error method, but it's a bit of what I would say, it's a bit of you start doing multiple so that you hit one or two. So it's like that. It is de-risking. I would put it that way. I will not call it as trial and error, but it is a little bit of a de-risking. You try to put 2-3 analysis in place so that you will get up one correct. That's the reason. Hope sooner RPS will update PAN, Aadhaar, and ITR websites, MC website. It's part. It would do, but that's for a different topic. Okay, data scientist and data analyst, what is the difference? Okay, data analyst is a smaller subset of someone who's a data scientist. Okay, so data scientist might encompass massaging data, what we said, no? He might have to do certain things like that. Data scientist is a huge subject. It involves, it encompasses AI, it encompasses machine learning, it encompasses techniques by which you can store the data in a much better way. Like Hadoop platform, you want to store the data in a much better way in an Hadoop platform. So those, the entire ambit would come under a data scientist role. Okay, but a data scientist would be a smaller person of it who analyzes the data and interprets that in a much better way. So if you call me a difference, I would call data analysis subset of data science. So data scientist will have a better role to play or a wider role to play than a data analyst. Okay, what are the 3 private institutions teach if you have to take up data analytics course? I think that would be a private question. I don't want to endorse anyone. You have plenty of courses online. Okay, so you take edX, Coursera, Harvard is offering a course in that. You have IMB offering a course in that. So you have plenty of courses online, and it surfaces 60-70% of what we need on that. I have also not did it in a particular private institution, so I will not be a right person to answer that. Learning should be, I think the last slide answered it. You can start with Excel, you start doing certain courses parallelly, start doing certain exercises in BI for the existing data set you have, start looking at client problems one by one and expand the particular vertical. See, tool learning is something that I would put it across as secondary. First, start thinking as a data analyst. So start making or realigning our thinking as a data guy. So that is what is the primary one. Business problem understanding and thinking as a data person, these two are primary things. Tools, you have a lot of people who know the tools. You can hire someone who can help you with Power BI. So I might, while I know a bit of Power BI, I might not be the expert in the, I would say, put it this way, whether an expertise in the Power BI is a prerequisite for you to be a data analyst, and answer is no. Okay, you can always have a team of professionals where one is a functional person, one is a business person, one who can understand the language of data, and one who is an expert in Power BI. Okay, it's more assuming I know Power BI well, and there is a scenario where I believe that Tableau would present it better. Then I should not say that I know only Power BI. It should not be the case. I am the one who's, I'm more from an angle of a business person and someone who can understand the business problem using data. So I would play that CA should do this role better, but you should have an understanding about the tool, what it can do. You need not know, or what I would say, personally, we need not know all the coding requirements in a Tableau or all the coding requirements. While understanding a bit of a code will help us to be a better resource, but I would put it across a functional knowledge is more important than the other of it. Okay. Okay, the last is dashboard with some analysis tools would help. I'm not getting it. So if you say you have a dashboard and you will also analyze it further, then the question is, what kind of problem are we solving? Okay, some of the dashboard that we are having has a very good cross-functioning capability and drilling down capability. So it should solve maximum problem. If it is not, then we should go back to our drawing board to know how the data dashboard is defined. Is there something that we need to improve upon it? Okay. So dashboard with some analysis tool would help. It helps when the business problem is something like that. In my experience, if you are building a dashboard in an already existing good tool like Power BI or Tableau or Google Analytics, it solves maximum question that you can encompass. And they're also constantly coming with new visuals, new patterns, and etc., which is the game for it. Okay, so how do you talk about data leakage? How do you deal with minimize it? First is that generally work in a private cloud. So it helps you to save data much better. If you're doing a big data project, it is very important that we have a private cloud that is used, and enter into a environment with a client saying that what is your indemnity clause on data leakages. These two are very important. Private cloud indemnity clauses, these two are very important. Third, restrict your users. Like, what I would put it this way: if you undergo a SOC audit in your organization, okay, then whatever question that you're asked is mostly done. Okay, an SOC audit covers predominant of the problems we talk about on data leakages and etc. So what happens is that you can minimize it by having good user logins and not allowing users to use their own personal computers to log in the cloud of data related engagements, only working in our own systems, and asking them to change the password in every 1 or 2 months of time, and presenting the report. When you're presenting the report, ask the client who should be the process owner to which it is to be presented, and etc. Okay, with that you can minimize that to a significant extent. Get yourself an SOC checklist, what an SOC auditor would do as a checklist, and if you follow certain techniques of it, the data leakages will reduce tremendously. Travel salesman algorithm. Okay, I think it's a private question. I have my email ID, so you can put it onto that. I will also, if I need a little bit more information about that particular private cloud. So I have shared my email ID in this. It will be there in the presentation. So you can always touch base with us on if we can throw more light on it. Competition analysis is a part of what you talked about. That too, something that we did in scrapping data from the competitors. That is to online rating, sentiment analysis, and etc. Really online presence. Here, ensure that you're not doing something that is not ethical. I mean, the data that is available in the public source that we are getting it is good. If the data is not available in the public source and we are getting it, we might also get into some kind of data-related problem with privacy bills that is coming up, and with the data regulation that is going to come up. The competitor analysis based on the public available data is very important. And also ensure that we are having ethics class that is built so that tomorrow, if there is going to be, we do it by a legal means to get the data. That is very important. Okay. You mean to say data analyst software picks up from the data cloud? Yeah, she asked me about a particular question. Yeah, I use a tool that helps me to pull that from a data cloud. Then, Mr. That is all for the day.
That's it, sir. We'll just see the question that is raised now, sir.
Yeah, I'll
In
take a
Q&A
couple of more
panel.
questions, Venkat. I'll just read them out. Shobha has asked, for a beginner, which course would you suggest, please?
Okay, so there was one course in edX that starts with data analytics using Excel. That's a very good platform to start. There is one in Excel, which is hosted by Microsoft. That's a very good point to start, because Excel is a tool that we already know to an extent, and it also helps us to understand data in a much better way. That is a very good course to start. And the second good course to start with is Introduction to Statistics. Is a course that is hosted in edX by IAMB. That is also a very good course to start.
Then CA Rajagopal Rao has asked, apart from these data, which can be quantified, how do you quantify qualitative elements in a business decision making?
Great. So what happens is that this is a problem that is not just here today. That is a global scenario, and people are coming up with cues for that. Quantitative techniques is like, say, let us very simply put out a user preference. Okay, it is not a qualitative. It is not a quantitative thing. It's a qualitative factor. I liking a movie. Okay. So someone might not like it. I might like it. So these are not directly these are qualitative measures. How does a salesperson? What is the sentiment in the market and things like that? If you see traditionally also, the bigger challenge is how do you define qualitative items using quantity? Okay, that's where this entire habit started. Correct. So we want to have a qualitative information that this company is doing better. This is not. I mean, this could be a hunch or this could be a feeler. But now, if you say this is qualitative, then it would be subjective. So we say, okay, it is better because it is doing this much of a turnover. It has grown by 20%. So to define a qualitative aspect using quantity is the start point of analysis. Now, what we do is relationship. For example, when we did a customer metrics, we put a relationship as a yardstick. So what we asked is we asked the people to score their customers as A, B, C. Okay, A is a good score, B is a bad score, 3 is a second score. This is a qualitative feeler aspect. So we try to define a categorical variable to it, an order variable to it, so that we can use that as a metrics for us to analyze the customer much better. So we have to work on bringing quantitative elements to qualitative factors as well, as a means by which we can understand, we can bring that also into decision making.
The last
Clear?
question is from CA Uma Shankar. Should we use a sound text function to scrub the area name instead of a word cloud? I'm not sure if a word cloud will help.
Yeah, with a private question, ask him to put a mail to me. I'll tell you what are the differences between these two features. So I have my email ID. So it is a too specific question for a bigger audience for this talk. So I can answer private.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Venkat. With that, we have covered all the questions which have come. Truly excellent presentation. He showed his skill on this very niche topic, I might say. But clearly, more and more chartered accountants are picking up to it based on the questions that I'm seeing and the sort of participation that we're getting. The credit also goes to the speaker today, who has made it such an engaging session and an entertaining session. So thank you so much, Venkatesan sir, for such a lovely session with us today. I'm sure everyone will go home wiser and try to work on the development points that you have given today. I also wish to share with the members, I have shared the feedback link in the chat box above. I request you all to please do leave a feedback, be it as organizers such as myself or the chairman, or the speakers such as Venkatesan sir here. All of us work on feedback, whether good or bad, you please do share. We will work on it. If it is bad, if it is good, we'll be happy and more motivated. I also would like to share a couple of updates about our future programs. As you're all aware, many programs.
Just a minute. I have shared my email ID. So if you have a specific questions, you can ring up to me in that email.
Yes, please share it, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, I've shared it in the chat box actually.
Okay. Okay, Venkatesan sir has shared his email ID in the chat box. Anyone who wishes to get in touch with him, feel free to do the same. Regarding our future programs, on 28th of September, that is on Monday at 6 p.m., we have a program on valuation issues under GST, where CA Prasanna Krishnan will be speaking on 28th of September. On 29th of September, we have a very important program, Controversies in Capital Gains. We have our CA TG Suresh will be speaker for that program. That is also at 6 p.m. So I request you all to please do join for the forthcoming programs. In fact, Chairman and I are on constant touch. We are planning many more interesting programs in October. We have got it lined up and we will be announcing shortly. So please do join us on 28th and 29th. Till then, stay home, stay safe. Wish everybody a very happy weekend. Take care.
Once again, thank you to everyone. Thank you for the session. Thank you for the time.